How about them Cowboys? You just showed up flat. You just got outplayed offensively, defensively. It's a disappointing effort, I think, when you think about the Cowboys. And you said it earlier, Eves, about Elliott, man. I mean, how you give that guy 13 touches with a quarterback who's banged up? You're going to let him throw it 40-something times? I don't know, man. I just from the perspective of an offensive lineman, I would not have been happy. I can tell you that. I know going in, we are going to ground and pound it. We're going to keep the hottest player in our division being Carson Wentz on the bench as often as we can. And it's 17-9. This is not like this was a track meet that you had to compete in. This was a game that you fully had ability to win it had you just stuck to what you would do well, and they didn't perform.
Tim, it seems like what Jeff is saying right now is what Cowboy fans and the media have been saying so many times after their games. What were they doing? What were they thinking? What was the scheme? What was the strategy based on what was at stake here?
Where was the fire? Where was the sense of urgency of what was at stake? I mean, I like Jeff thought, and I think I was sitting here last week being like, look, when they play their best, they're almost as good as anybody.
Absolutely.
They have talented players.
Yes.
Look, the Zeke thing is 100% correct. Now, is that because they just weren't calling enough runs for him, or he wanted out? You alluded to that, and I don't know if he was banged up in the game, and that was part of the reason that he wasn't out there. But yeah, that's not the identity of that team. That team was in kind of a spread shotgun look for much of that game. That's just not who they are. I don't think. That's not when they're at their best. Last Sunday, we were sitting here talking about how they had two backs go for over 100 yards.
Right.
And how impressive was that? And it was like, okay, we know who they are and who they can be. Well, they didn't even try to be that tonight.
Right.
This is the first time since the Cowboys have had Ezekiel Elliott in a game that Elliott has played in, with all the suspensions that he's had, that the Eagles have finally vanquished the Cowboys. So when Zeke was in there playing against the Eagles, check mark, automatic Dallas before today. I just want to switch the paradigm a little bit because there's been so much joking this week about somebody having to win this division with such an ugly record. What did Philly show you today, if anything, that could say, you know what? Maybe they could be in line for a deep postseason run that maybe a week ago today people would have said, come on, no way.
No quit. I mean, listen, if you look at this football team, I wrote them off. I'm assuming most people wrote them off. They will not. I mean, they're not going to quit. They're not going to quit as a football team. They're going to trust each other. Carson Wentz, who hasn't had his best year, all of a sudden is hot. And about players who hadn't caught a pass at the beginning of the season, all of a sudden these guys are getting open. And whether it's Doug Peterson and the play calls, or if it's Carson Wentz, or if it's Sanders running the rock, whatever it is, it seems like it's working. And they're finding that kind of flow that they found even when Foles was playing, back in the playoffs. And this is, let's not forget, this is Carson Wentz really first time in this type of environment when it's all on the line. We've seen him get kind of banged up and somebody else had to come in. He played lights out again. We showed it when it mattered most. He's got no back down in him. I mean, whether he's got to pull it down and go run it for 8 yards and get him in a 3rd and 2 instead of a 3rd and long, he's doing it all, and you can tell that team is buying in to the mission at hand. I was shocked at the game, but I'm impressed as well from the Eagles, the way they played. When you find a team that believes like they believe. Now the question is, do they only believe because they were beating the Cowboys, right? Yeah. Can you continue this thing? You got some really good teams in the NFC. Do you believe you can match up with these guys? Man, I mean, tonight was an inspired effort, in my opinion.
What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, do I believe in them against some of the?
Right. No.
Probably don't. Now, I think there are obviously some things that have happened there in the past between their head coach and some members of that team that probably feel like they have that belief and that hope that they can get on a run. But when I look at when you look at their receivers, you look at some of the mistakes up front, you look at guys in and out of the lineup in the secondary at times. I mean, Yeah, I think that'll be tough when you're playing the Saints.
Right.
I think that's going to be tough when you're playing the 49ers.
49ers. I agree.
And that's how I would see it.
But for them, based on what's happened to them this season,
Here's the
even in
deal.
this position,
We're joking around. We're joking around. Hey, someone has to win the division.
Yeah.
Winning your division is a very big deal.
That's always the goal.
It's the number one goal in 32 locker rooms at the start of the season.
right.
So that's the reality of it.
Even if you win it at 8-8, you still win the division.
Still win.
All right, fair enough.
You know what they call the guy that graduated in the bottom of his class from medical school?
A graduate, a doctor.
That's what they call him.
Boy, Mike.
That's what they call him.
Dad jokes out here. All right, we saw Jerry Jones heading out from his luxury box there. He was going to talk to the media. He's doing it right now here on Sports Center.
Extremely disappointing, to say the least. Philadelphia obviously gets the leg up now. We are very disappointed when you get yourself technically in a spot to kind of come into Philadelphia team that's got the players they've got, even though they have missing a lot of them. When you get in this spot, you give yourself a chance to be real disappointed. We are. The fact that we didn't get any scores, the fact the game turned out the way it did, we played well. There's not a lot to say about anything else other than it's very disappointing. We all expected to leave here as the NFC's champs. We're not. We just go to Washington. But this is, we let them really get in, do the things they played well. Wayne's played well, as you all can assess for yourself. But that's about it. I don't have a lot to say about anything else, just other than we're exceptionally disappointed. I thought we could come up here, and we did. We'd had good weeks practice. We thought we could come up here and play a better game than we played. And I thought right up until the very end of the thing that we could come in and make some plays and get it done. So it is a very meaningful game because of the circumstances within the league. And we've had times this year a lot when we didn't play as well as we wanted to play, but we had in mind stepping back up here and getting on a run and having some good things happen. This is a disappointing setback for that locker room and for all of us, and I know it is for the fans. That's it.
Okay, sometimes what is not said really tells a story. Now, we've been watching Jerry Jones talk after games for decades now, really, and he's always forthcoming, wins or losses. He did not want to be out there very long, and it felt like he didn't want to say something after this game. 2 total minutes he spent talking to the media, when it's usually almost 12 or 15. He wanted to get away before he said something bad. That's my takeaway from that. He is as upset about this particular loss than he has been all season long based on what we just saw.
I don't disagree with you at all about that. And the crazy thing about this is Cowboys still aren't out of it.
No,
That's right.
Like, that's the crazy thing about it. And look, I actually think the Cowboys are good enough, and if they will run the football, which they're very capable of doing,
right?
Even going on the road and winning a game.
Right.
So, look, I still think if they get in, they could be a dangerous team. I still think that way about them, even though we've seen them put together efforts like against the Jets earlier this year or against the Eagles tonight, where you're like, man, there is no life in this team.
No consistency.
But yeah, so I don't think Jerry can say something because they may end up winning the division still.
Well, that's true. That's right, because they're not out of it completely yet. Yeah.
That's a gut punch, man.
All right, Jason Garrett, head coach, been in battle this season. Hear what he says after this loss.
Jason, what was the call on 4th down, the design on that final play you had on 4th down, and why were Cooper and Cobb not on the part on the field with that side?
You mean the one to MG on the sidelines? Yeah, we had an opportunity outside to him. We had different routes going inside, so the ball can go any of 5 places on that play based on the coverage they get. And obviously in those 2-minute situations, those guys ran a lot of plays in a row, and each of those guys, particularly Randall, came up big at different times. So we had a great matchup outside. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cash in on it.
That hurt. He seemed a little bit more affected by that injury on throwing, because some of those throws didn't look like typical Dak Prescott today.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't do what we needed to do in all three phases of our team today to win. Give Philadelphia credit; they played a good ball game. We didn't play well enough to win the game, and there were a lot of different areas that we have to get better at. There certainly were some things we did well, but it certainly wasn't good enough.
What did you think of Dak throwing the ball today?
I thought at times he threw the ball very well. Other times we weren't as efficient as we needed to be in the passing game.
It seemed like the offense was starting to get something going. There would be a misplay or a fumble or something like that. How tough was it for you guys to be able to try and find something offensively in the third and fourth quarter?
Yeah, we just had the one fumble. Unfortunately, we lost that. That would have given us a field goal opportunity to get points there. And I just think in general, we weren't as efficient as we needed to be in the passing game. Obviously, they loaded up against the run. They did a good job. They came in with the idea that we weren't going to be able to run the football. I thought we tried to be persistent with the running game. It wasn't effective enough throughout. There were a couple of good runs here and there, but not consistent enough throughout the ball game. And then we had to attack them in the passing game based on what they were doing. And at times, we made some big plays in the passing game, but other times we weren't able to convert like we needed to.
On the fourth down to Gallup, why were Cobb and Cooper not on the field at that point?
Yeah, we just talked about that.
Say why they were off the field.
Yeah, and sometimes in those 2-minute situations, they'd run a lot of plays in a row, and so the other guys were out there.
In Cooper's case, he was out for a stretch of 5 or 6 plays in a row. Not drive the one before. Was he hurt?
He wasn't. We were rotating Tavon in there. Had a couple good opportunities with Tavon. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cash in on him.
Mark Cooper was not hurt today, correct?
He was not hurt in the game, no.
Jason, what is your message to your team now?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get the job done, and we all have to own it. I have to own it. The coaching staff has to own it. All the players and staff members have to own it and give the Eagles credit. And now we have to go forward. Unfortunately, we don't control our destiny anymore, but we do control our opportunity next week against Washington. So we'll get back in there. We'll clean up this game. We'll get our eyes forward. We'll try to do our part and finish up the season the right way.
Jason, on the third down call to Tony Pollard, that pitch play, the one he fumbled, Zeke's not on the field. Are you comfortable with that call? Do you like that call?
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole aspect of that call, but there's a lot of different things that can happen based on what they play. And they play a particular front. We can get to that play. If they play another front, we're going to run a different play in that situation. Zeke had gotten the ball a number of times, and he was, just needed a little bit of a rest there. And so he came out. Obviously, Zeke was a big part of our game today in that particular situation. The way we implemented that play, we felt good about what we got to. Unfortunately, we weren't able to convert on.